We are knocking on the door of week number 9 of the 2025 fantasy football season. Tonight, Monday Night Football will close the page on week number 8. So we are going to get ahead of things and take a early look into the waiver wire for week number 9. In today's video, we'll be talking about 15 players that you don't want to just walk. You want to run to the waiver wire to pick up before your other league mates do. Before we get into things, though, I would like to ask that if you are new to the channel and you do end up enjoying today's video, that you please make sure to hit that subscribe button down below. So without further ado, let's get into today's video. We begin with the first waiver wire ad of the week. Tyrone Tracy, running back of the New York Football Giants, going up against the San Francisco 49ers this week at home in MetLife. 34% rostered over on Sleeper. We all saw what happened to Cam Boutte on Sunday. Obviously, that was a terrible scenario, and I do hope that Cam Boutte is able to make a full recovery. Anyone with a pair of eyes, though, and has watched football for a while, realizes that that kind of injury is not something that you come back from this season, and I do hope that he will be able to return at some point next season. So now the door is wide open for Tyrone Tracy to become the lead back on the New York Football Giants. Obviously, when you compare the play of Cam Boutte to Tyrone Tracy, Cam Boutte has been considerably better this season, but it is also important to understand that once Tyrone Tracy went down and got hurt, that is when the offense ultimately made the change to Jackson Dart, when the offense started to get better. So despite the fact that Tyrone Tracy definitely was far from a hot commodity early on in the season, now, with the offense running a lot more smoothly, without Cam Boutte, Tyrone Tracy should be the clear lead back on the team. I do not believe that any running back on this roster will rival the amount of touches and snaps that he will see. So I think Tyrone Tracy is, at this point, a guy that is worthy of the number 1 waiver wire ad. A guy that is worthy of potentially blowing a lot of your fab dollars to receive due to how good this offense can be. Last week, he had 10 rushes for 39 yards, 2 receptions on 3 targets for 14 yards. Again, I'm not going to sit here and pretend that I am super duper excited about how I have seen Tyrone Tracy look this season, but I do believe that as the clear lead alpha back on a Giants offense that has the opportunity to continue to put up big games, you want Tyrone Tracy on your roster. Next up, we got Tyjae Spears, running back of the Tennessee Titans, going up against the LA Superchargers. 46% rostered over on Sleeper. We've been talking about Tyjae Spears for a while now, ever since he ended up coming off the IR, and for some reason, he is still owned in less than 50% of leagues over on Sleeper. Running back 12 last week up against the Colts. It is important to note that the running back finishes, the wide receiver, the tight end, the QB finishes are going to be slightly different, as this video is being recorded on Monday before Monday Night Football has taken place. So running back 12 up against the Colts in Indianapolis. They get absolutely Cleveland steamered in that game. They lose the game 14-38. 9 carries for Tyjae Spears as the RB12 for 59 yards and a touchdown, as well as 3 receptions on 3 targets for 23 yards. Tyjae Spears did end up outsnapping Tony Pollard 52-46%, more than doubled his fantasy production, and Spears had 12 touches and Pollard had 12 as well. Now, I don't think you are ever going to be able to love playing Tyjae Spears, to adore the fact that Tyjae Spears is in your lineup, due to the fact that the Tennessee Titans offense is a complete and utter disgrace. But at the end of the day, if you are in a rough spot with your running backs, if you're dealing with buys, if your running back depth is weak, you need to at least have this guy on your roster because he is a startable asset due to the fact that he should be getting 10 plus touches every single week, and due to the fact that he is a solid pass catching option. Now we move to the Turtle Man, Troy Franklin, wide receiver of the Denver Broncos, going up against the Houston Texans in Houston. 33% rostered over on Sleeper. Last week, Troy Franklin let his nuts hang up against the Dallas Cowboys as the wide receiver number 1 in all of fantasy football in PPR. They smacked the Dallas Cowboys up front hand, backhand. They gave him the good old eye gouge that Cyril Gahn gave to Tom Aspinall on Saturday in Abu Dhabi. They win the game 44-24. 6 receptions on 8 targets for 89 yards and not 1, but 2 touchdowns at home in Mile High. In terms of the snaps for the Broncos, 84% for Courtland Sutton, 63% for Troy Franklin, 56% for Pat Bryant, 30% for Marvin Mims, and 17% for Dolphins legend Trent Sherfield. It is very clear that Franklin is the wide receiver 2 on this team and has big upside weekly. 2 games this season with over 20 PPR points, 3 games with over 12 points. I am not going to lie to you and pretend that he is this uber safe asset, but in a Denver Broncos offense that has the ability to put up big games, which we have seen multiple times this season. We saw last week up against the Dallas Cowboys, obviously a huge offensive performance. The week prior up against the Giants, that crazy fourth quarter comeback. So Troy Franklin is definitely a guy that, again, I am just shocked. How is he available still in around 70% of leagues, 33% rostered on Sleeper? Now we move to my number 4 waiver wire ad of the week, Chimere Dike, wide receiver of the Tennessee Titans, going up against the LA Superchargers. 19% rostered over on Sleeper, as we already talked about. With Tyjae Spears, the Tennessee Titans ate a 5-knuckle shuffle from the Colts last week. They lose 14-38. Chimere was the wide receiver number 13. 7 receptions on 8 targets for 93 yards, as well as 1 rush for 1 yard. Week 9 wide receiver snaps for the Titans, 94% for Alec Iomanner, 89% for Chimere, 79% for Van Jefferson, and all others were under 10%. Last week, he did lead the team in targets, receptions, and receiving yards. Him, as well as Iomanner, had 8 targets. He had the most receptions by 3 and the most yards by 40. Back-to-back weeks now with 16-plus points, and it would appear for the most part that he is the guy that is trusted the most by Cam Ward. Again, I understand that the Tennessee Titans offense is scary. I understand that the Tennessee Titans offense is a complete and utter unmitigated disaster. But if Chimere Dike is able to become the clear wide receiver 1 in this offense, this could be a diamond in the rough scenario where, again, it may feel gross every single week, but back-to-back weeks with 16-plus PPR points, he needs to be on your radar. And at this point, if you wait one more week, you might be 1 week too late because someone might already snag him up. Now we move to my 5th waiver wire ad of the week. Kayshon Boutte, wide receiver of the New England Patriots, going up against the Atlanta Falcons at home in Foxborough. 53% rostered over on Sleeper. Wide receiver number 12 versus the Cleveland Browns last week in a game where they dominated 32-13. Boutte had 5 targets, 3 receptions, 75 yards, as well as a touchdown. 3 straight games now with over 13 PPR points and 4 total touchdowns over that stretch. In terms of the snaps, Boutte has been getting the most, 74%. Matt Collins last week, 72%. Stephon Diggs just continues to not really be able to elevate up the snap count, which to me, by the fact that it, last week was week 8, it's kind of crazy that he's not playing more than 60% of the snaps. 51%. Kyle Williams, 22%. And Luigi's brother, Mario Douglas, with 21%. Boutte continues to be a guy that feels very risky, right? Because his target share bounces up and down. I wouldn't be shocked if up against the Falcons, the guy had 8 targets. I also wouldn't be shocked if he had just 2. But ultimately, when the guy just lives inside the end zone, he keeps putting up productive games. He's a guy that is fine to be flexed. Next up, we got Zonovan Knight, running back of the Arizona Cardinals, going up against the Dallas Cowboys in Jerry's World, 28% rostered over on Sleeper. But before we talk about Bam and the rest of the waiver wire ads for the week, I would like to give you guys a quick word from our friends and our partner over at Underdog. If you're brand new to Underdog and sign up using promo code Notorious, or by clicking on the link in the video description, you receive a free pick, plus a first-time deposit offer of up to $1,000 in bonus funds, as well as if you play $5 in the pick'em, you'll get an additional $100 in bonus funds or in bonus entries. If you don't know how the pick'em works on Underdog, it's incredibly simple. You make at least 2 picks, on the higher or the lower. If both picks hit, you get paid. If you do multiple other picks, then the payout will be higher, but obviously all of the picks are going to need to hit. Make sure you guys do check that out, promo code Notorious, or by clicking on the link in the video description. Now, for Bam Knight, this may be the last game you can utilize him, as Trey Benson's return should be coming soon. We're on the precipice of Trey Benson returning based upon what the team outlined following his injury. So, while this isn't like some long-term option, in my opinion, as I would think that once Trey Benson comes back, we see a lot less Bam Knight and we see more Michael Carter, and Trey Benson is the guy But if you need a guy to play this week, right? If you're dealing with the bye weeks, your running backs are down bad, then Bam Knight up against one of the easiest matchups for running backs up against the Cowboys in Jerry's world is definitely worthy of starting. And while I don't think Bam Knight is all that, right? He's not the greatest running back in the NFL, far from it. I mean, he's going to go chill on the fucking bench while Michael Carter and Trey Benson play once Trey Benson comes back. But when you go up against the Dallas Cowboys, any running back could look like Barry fucking Sanders. So Bam and the Cardinals were on bye last week, so we have to go back to week number 7 to look at his last performance. Running back 23 up against the Packers in Green Bay. They lose that game 23-27 in a tough matchup for RBs. 14 rushes for 57 yards, 3 receptions on 4 targets for 7 yards. In terms of snap count, Bam Knight played 45%, Michael Carter 37%, and Browns legend Dearness Johnson 18%. So again, as a 1-week rental, Bam Knight is awesome. If you're looking, oh man, maybe this guy could be a league winner, he is just not going to be that. Speaking of potential 1-week rentals, we got Dylan Sampson, running back of the Cleveland Browns. They are on bye this week, 12% rostered over on Sleeper. Quinshon Judkins suffered a sprained AC joint up against the Patriots and is considered as day-to-day. Since they're on bye, he could very well be back for their matchup in MetLife up against the Jets in week number 10. According to Dwayne McFarland over on Twitter, Judkins was injured on the 7th drive of last week's game. After his departure, Dylan Sampson was the RB1, 7.9 PPR points, 73% of the snaps, 75% of the attempts, 68% of the routes, 32% of the targets, and 1.98 yards per route run. If you have Judkins, you definitely need to pick up Mr. Dylan Sampson. If you don't have Judkins and you don't trust your running back core, if you could potentially get a nice 1-week rental after the bye out of Dylan Sampson, you would want to pick him up as well. Now we move to a duo. This will be 8A and 8B waiver wire ads. Jayden, Higgins, and Xavier Hutchinson, wide receivers of the Houston Texans, going up against the Denver Broncos. 22% rostered over on Sleeper. Jayden Higgins, wide receiver 24 versus the San Francisco 49ers. They win that game 26-15, shockingly. In my opinion, I didn't think the Houston Texans would win that convincingly up against the 49ers. I would have expected them to lose, and they won by 11 points. 4 receptions on 8 targets for 34 yards and a tug. And Xavier Hutchinson, wide receiver 8 versus San Francisco. They won the game 26-15. Shocker. 5 receptions on 6 targets for 69 yards. Very nice. I like, as well as a touchdown. Both guys scored. Higgins played 63% of the snaps. Hutchinson 71%. Jalen Noel, who I was talking up last week, he had a good game as well, 39%. And Braxton Berrios, Dolphins legend, 29%. Higgins led the team in targets with 8. Hutchinson did outscore him, though, with 17.9 PPR points compared to his 13.4%. Assuming that Nico Collins returns this week, again, making assumptions can make an ass out of you and me. It's Monday as I'm recording this. We might not know until Friday if he's going to play or not, but if Nico Collins plays, then these guys are just bench stashes, right? I would be willing to just see what is going to happen coming out of the bye, or they came out of the bye week, obviously, and with Collins coming back, because they don't really have a true number 2. Christian Kirk wasn't really doing that well, so depending on which one of these guys looks good next week, we might be talking about one of these guys much higher than this. So they are definitely worthy of bench ads, especially since they're playing up against the Denver Broncos. I wouldn't be, chomping at the bit to have either of these guys in my lineup this week. Then we got the Houston Texans tight end, Dalton Schultz, going up against the Denver Broncos, 45% roster on Sleeper. Stinker for Dalton Schultz last week is the tight end 26. 2 receptions on 3 targets for 24 yards. Dalton Schultz, though, typically is a guy that, even with Nico Collins healthy, is kind of just knocking on the door of having a good enough game to be start-worthy. We have seen some start-worthy games this season. So, again, if you're playing tight end roulette every single week, then Dalton Schultz is a guy that I would be willing to throw out there up against the Broncos. Then we have Isaiah Davis, running back of the Jets, going on a bye this week, 32% rostered over on Sleeper. Running back 10 at Cincinnati last week. They win for Nick Mangold. A very emotional day for the Jets fans out there. I am very happy that, I'm a Dolphins fan, and I hate when people say this stuff too, by the way, where they're like, oh man, we were talking about Nick Mangold, and I'm a Patriots fan, and I'm a Bills fan, and we were just so sad to hear that. It's like, why do you have to bring up the fact that you are a fan of that team, right? Like, who gives a fuck? Nick Mangold was a guy not just a football player, right? And as someone that watched a lot of Barstool content that involved Nick Mangold back in the day when he was on Barstool Breakfast, that was very sad to see. So, no, I don't want to sit here and just get all emotional on a video, and I definitely don't want to come off as someone that gets fake emotional either, but I am definitely very sad to hear that, and, prayers to his family and all that, obviously. So, Isaiah Davis, they get the win, and Isaiah Davis plays very well. 7 rushes for 65 yards, 5 receptions on 5 targets for 44 yards. They win the game 39-38. I placed a bet on them to win when it was like plus 180, so I was very happy with that payout. And I saw them at one point, they're like plus 2,000, but I didn't have the cojones to do it because it really seemed like they were kind of just in the fourth quarter, it was gonna not go their way, and then everything just went their way. It was all Jets at the end. So congrats to Jets fans for getting their first win. I get that there are a lot of people, just like the Dolphins fans, they're like, oh, we need to tank, we need to lose every single game. And I say that, sometimes like, oh, I wish the Dolphins could lose these games. But at the end of the day, when I'm watching the game, I'm rooting for my team, and it's awesome for the Jets fans to get that win. They definitely deserved it. 56% for Breece Hall, 46% of the snaps for Davis. The way I look at this scenario, in my opinion, is Davis is a bench stash because Breece Hall could get traded. If Breece Hall does not get traded, Isaiah Davis kind of just chills on your bench, right? He's not like a stand-alone piece that can coagulate with Breece Hall, right? I don't think both these guys can coexist most weeks, right? The fact that he was the RB10 last week, the odds of that ever happening again this season is slim to none, right? So if Breece gets traded, you might be looking at you just fucking opened up Pandora's box, right? You might have just found the gold at the end of the rainbow that the little leprechaun was hiding from you, right? Or Breece Hall doesn't get traded, and then you can just cut Isaiah Davis, unless you're a Breece Hall owner, and then he's just like an insurance policy. Shout out to the Gecko. Then we got Mono Man Sam Darnold, quarterback of the Seattle Seahawks, going up against the Washington Commanders in Washington. 42% rostered over on Sleeper. The Seahawks were on bye last week, so we got to go back to week 7 for Sam's last game, and that game was a bad one. Quarterback 24 up against the Texans. They win the game 27-19, but not because of Sam. 17 completions on 31 attempts for 213 yards and a touchdown with 1 INT, 3 rushes for 1 yard and a fumble loss. That was his second worst game of the season. The worst game was his first game as a Seattle Seahawk. 15 plus points in 5 of 7 games, 20 plus points in 2 of 7 games. He is a reliable quarterback 2-piece, right? I talk about this a lot throughout the season. What Sam Darnold is he's a nice bye week fill, and he's a nice keep your head above water play. I don't think you're going to have very many weeks this season where Sam Darnold is the reason why you won your week, right? By the end of the season, I don't think anyone's going to be like, wow, Sam Darnold won me my league. I don't think anyone's going to say that. But for the people that are struggling at quarterback, Sam Darnold is a good enough fill-in to, if the rest of your team is built good, built different, right? Sam Darnold can be good enough to help you win. He's not going to be the MVP of your fantasy team. He's not going to be the first guy that gets the Lombardi trophy handed to him when your fantasy football team celebrates together. He's not going to be the first guy to kiss the trophy. He's like 8 dudes down the line, like a Bonnie Blue video. But ultimately, I do still think Sam Darnold is rosterable and startable up against the Commanders in Washington. Now we move to Trevor Lawrence, quarterback of the Jacksonville Jaguars, going up against the Las Vegas Raiders. 32% rostered over on Sleeper. The Jaguars were on bye last week, so we have to go back to week 7 for T-Law's last game, because again, 6 fucking teams were on bye last week. Quarterback 14 in week 7 versus the Rams in London. They got absolutely sparked in this game. The offense of the Jacksonville Jaguars was sleeping with the fishes, but still, T-Law had a good enough game. They lose 7-35, 23 of 48 for 296 yards and a tug with 2 rushes for 18 yards. He took more sacks to the face than Lily Phillips, but ultimately, he started an okay game. I would expect BTJ to be good to go. Travis Hunter kind of ascending. The Raiders are descending. The Raiders are like in the bottom of the ocean where you see those crazy fishes that have like the lantern on their head. You ever seen those in like your middle school or high school science book? That's one of those, that's where Trevor Lawrence is chilling at right now. He's chilling next to that is kind of where Trevor Lawrence is chilling at, because Trevor Lawrence hasn't been the most elite quarterback this season, but he's been good enough for fantasy football, and up against a Raiders team that, again, sleeping with the fishes. Shout out to Luca Brasi. Shout out to Big Pussy from The Sopranos. I think Trevor Lawrence, again, he's worthy of a start. Again, I've said again like 18,000 times in a row. These guys, to me, feel like 1 week fill-ins, right? A few week fill-ins. You don't want to necessarily rely on these guys week in and week out. We're mostly targeting them due to their matchups. And we got Tua, turn the ball over. Quarterback of the Miami Dolphins going up against the Baltimore Ravens on Thursday Night Football. 22% rostered over on Sleeper. Quarterback 6 at Atlanta. They win 34-10. One-eyed Tua Tagovailoa. He must have been eating his wife's ass or something, and something bad happened because he had like one eye, and he ends up playing with one eye. After throwing a touchdown to Waddle, he hit the one eye celebration. It was beautiful. Shout out to Patchy, the pirate, Tua Tagovailoa. One-eyed Tua. Man, it's a legendary variant. Hopefully the guy ends up wearing a visor for the rest of the season. I'm not going to sit here and be like, oh man, the Dolphins are back. Tua 20 of 26 for 205 yards and 4 touchdowns. He's going to do it again up against the Ravens. I don't think so, but if there ever was a game for him to do it again, it would be up against the Ravens defense. I understand they just cleaned the clock of Chicago Bears quarterback Caleb Williams, but I think Tua should be fine enough in this game. Again, kind of a desperation start, but worthy of being started if you need him. Then we got A.J. Barner, tight end of the Seattle Seahawks, going up against the Washington Commanders in Washington. 17% roster on Sleeper. Seattle was on bye last week, like we said, so we got to go back to the Texans game. They win 27-19. A.J. Barner, though, not very involved. 1 reception on 3 targets for 7 yards. 10-plus PPR points, though, in 3 of his last 4 games. 3 total touchdowns in that stretch. Touchdown or bust type of play, but if Seattle's offense keeps percolating, you definitely can play A.J. Barner. Final guy here is going to be a guy that I feel as though is a lot of fool's gold, right? We talk about how in fantasy football, there's guys that you really like, right? On the waivers, like Tyrone Tracy, right? No one should have a problem picking up Tyrone Tracy. No one should have a problem making it rain to acquire Tyrone Tracy with their fab dollars. But number 15, Burger King foot lettuce, Christian Watson, wide receiver of the Green Bay Packers, going up against the Carolina Panthers, 15% roster on Sleeper, reeks of fool's gold. You can smell it right through the screen, right? I get wide receiver 24 up against the Steelers. They win 35-25, 4-4 like he was at Wendy's for 85 yards, 80% of the snaps for Dobbs, 66% for Matthew Golden Scar, 56% in the first game back for Christian Watson, Malik Heathbar, 33%, Savion Williams. Who the fuck is that guy? People chanted across the United States as he scored on Sunday Night Football, 19% rostered, or 19% of the snaps. So this is an offense that spreads the ball around a ton. This is the Oprah Winfrey offense. We talk about this a ton. You get the ball, you get the ball, check under your seat, buddy. You also get the ball. Everyone gets the ball. That's how Jordan Love does things. And eventually, Jayden Riley Reed is going to return, but I think Watson is fine to roster in deeper leagues. But if you are picking him up and you're playing him up against the Panthers, and you are expecting this man to be halfway consistent, you are lying straight to yourself. You are not living in reality. I like Christian Watson. I was a Christian Watson truther when he was scoring all those touchdowns with Mr. Discount Double Check a few years ago. I'm a Christian Watson guy. I've gone to bat for him so many times. I love Christian Watson. But ultimately, they have Dobbs. They drafted Matthew Golden as high as they did. Jayden Riley Reed's coming back. They have Tucker Kraft Mac and Cheese, who's sucking in balls like his name was Mia Malkova. So while I like Christian Watson, how in the fuck can you possibly talk about him as anything other than like a desperation start? So that's my opinion on things. Let me know down below in the comment section if there's some players I didn't talk about that you would like me to talk about. If something happens tonight on Monday Night Football and magically now someone is very relevant, we will talk about that in the comment section. I love you guys all so much. Check out the defensive stream video that I dropped earlier today. Make sure if you are new to the channel, you hit that subscribe button down below like it owes you some money. I love you guys a long time. I hope you always have a great one. And as always, good boy. Hit that like button, good boy.